Hey there, welcome back to my channel. If you've seen my content before, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Julie McCoy. I explore the rabbit hole of artificial intelligence. So for today's topic, we're going to talk about what will life look like in a world post-AGI, where artificial intelligence basically runs the show, does everything for us, changes everything as we know it. So not only do we work differently, we actually get to live our lives differently and possibly have a better life than the life we've known for centuries, where we are tied to currency, to production. AI could actually free us up from that. So I've been studying this, put thousands of hours of reading and research of my own into this, and I'm bringing you the best of what I've learned on my channel. I'm a critical thinker, and if that's you, you're gonna enjoy this channel. Welcome to the rabbit hole. Let's get into life post-AGI. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a few books that I've really been enjoying that have kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities. So you can kind of see, I'll just kind of walk you through some of them. So this one is Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near. He's actually launching a sequel called The Singularity is Nearer. Can't wait to get my hands on that. He has been in AI and computer science for 60 years, and he has accurately predicted what's going to happen in technology for 30 years running. So that's why I love Ray Kurzweil. So The Singularity is Near. It's quite the read. I would say it's very advanced and very technical. So I don't read it all day because it hurts my brain as a creative person, but it's awesome. I also have his book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. Very interesting thoughts in here, a little bit less heavy than the Singularity book, but also quite interesting. And then anything by Peter Diamandis, I am a big fan of. He is such a pro and expert and entrepreneur, really trying to help humanity find their best footing in this new age. He's been doing that for years. He works with Elon Musk and other futurists and entrepreneurs that are just at the top of their game. This book will completely change your mindset on what is possible, and I can't recommend it enough. Out of all three books, this is the one I would get and start reading because it really will open your mind. To put everything into perspective that I'm about to share with you in this video, the idea of abundance is where I want to start. So a lot of us, myself included, have been in, dare I say, institutionalized situations, whether it was school, whether it was church. I have been in these situations where you're taught to think a certain way, and that method of thinking is often scarcity. There isn't enough. You have to constantly produce, and we are always running out. Low on time, low on materials, money, you name it. But what's interesting, and my eyes were really open to this studying Peter Diamandis, his book on abundance, the earth isn't wired that way. I'll break it down very simply. So if you have one apple produces 10 seeds. From one seed can come one apple tree. One apple tree can produce anywhere from 200 to 300 apples. Now, of course, there's some that can produce 1,500, but for low average, let's just say 300. So if we take one apple, 10 seeds, one seed, one tree, 300 apples, one apple, when you consume it, can produce 3,000 more apples. When you really think about that, I'm telling you, you will start to see the world differently. And what that means is we actually birth more production from consumption than we do from creating. Here's another super crazy example. I learned this from listening to Elon Musk on Spaces. He was sharing how he believes in the power of solar energy, right? You see that in his work at Tesla. Did you know that in 1 hour, the Earth receives enough power from the sun to meet all of mankind's energy needs for 1 year? But the world actually uses less than 1% of the sun's energy for our electricity needs. That means like 99% of the sun's rays hitting the earth are unusable to us. Since technology breakthroughs have occurred in the history of the world, all a technology breakthrough is us, humans, literally uncovering, discovering a breakthrough of how to use something that already exists. Whenever we figure out how to make the ocean water drinkable, that will turn the 98% of the water here on Earth that's undrinkable into drinkable water. No one needs to go thirsty again. So the truth is the resources are here, and it's actually up to us to crack the code of how to use it. I think that's pretty cool. It just reinforces the need for innovators, critical thinkers, people who are willing to break the norm and go after something new, build assets, and return to the world more than what they arrived with. All right, so now that I've hopefully kind of prepped your mindset, I want to move into a life post-AGI, because AI is here. It's advancing unlike any other technology in the history of the world, and it's going to change economy, society, life, family, education, work, health, you name it, as we know it. So I want to read to you some of the findings from a study published a couple months ago, December of 2023, by the International Money Fund. And if you're not aware of this global organization, it was built from 190 countries that wanted to, well, it was governed by 190 countries, built by 44 countries that were seeking to build a framework for economic cooperation. It was actually established after the Great Depression, and it currently lends $1 trillion to its member countries. So it stabilizes and supports economic policies that promote stability in the financial system. This is a pretty interesting organization, right? It's governed by many countries. So whenever they release a publication, there's some pretty good stuff in here that comes from real data. So here's what they published December of 2023, talking about how to plan for an AI future. So I'm just going to pick apart some pieces from the study that I want to pull your attention to. So first of all, they're saying that AI is on a trajectory. They say maybe, but they really mean it is on a trajectory to surpass human intelligence, and we should be prepared. So AI is rapidly advancing. The pace of progress has accelerated in recent years. ChatGPT, released in November of 2022, shocked people, right? It could generate human quality code, that written content. We saw text models win, which is why I completely pivoted. I am no longer a writer for hire. I used to do that for 10 years. I don't believe in that model anymore. I think it's going to be completely overtaken by AI. I think, and I've seen studies and research that supports this, the majority of content we see online will be AI generated, because you can do it just so much simpler, easier, quicker, faster. Thought leadership, very advanced and experience heavy content, a lot like this one, people are still going to want to listen to people. So there's still a margin for the person, even in content. But if you're writing content to rank in Google and your face doesn't really matter to the success of that content, yeah, AI can do that. So this research report goes on to say that the foundation models behind generative AI, which is the biggest breakthrough we've ever seen, has been advancing for more than a decade. So it's the compute that is powering the reason for this exponential, actually the word is super exponential, not exponential. I heard that on Peter Diamandis' show Moonshots the other day. What that means is we're looking at AI and a technology that is doubling every 6 months. It's unthinkable what it can do month to month. And we're seeing this with the release of new models, leaps and bounds ahead of old models, literally released in weeks and months apart from each other. One of the quotes here is from Jeffrey Hinton, a computer scientist who actually laid the theoretical foundations of deep learning. He said, "I have suddenly switched my views on whether these things are going to be more intelligent than us." And he conjectured that AGI, which is AI that possesses the ability to understand, learn, and perform any intellectual task a human being can perform, it could happen within 5 to 20 years. And this article goes on to say that we could be looking at it a lot sooner. We could also be looking at it a lot later. It's actually kind of hard to tell. And this is regarding the launch of AGI. However, some facts stand. One of those facts is that automation has already taken over many tasks that only humans could perform. You know, I would say one of those surprising areas that AI can do better than a human very often is creativity. I have seen ChatGPT perform leaps and bounds ahead of me at producing creative texts for newsletters, content ideas, product launches, you name it. Infinitely more creative than me. And I'm shocked, but I do believe that a lot of creative jobs are on the chopping block because AI has billions of data points. And if you think about it, that is creativity. You're pulling from the language you know and all the points of data you know to position something in the most creative way. You're not necessarily creating something new. And AI can do that just infinitely better because that's a strength it has. So as AI advances, human beings may be able to continue to move into more complex tasks, or AI may overtake all human capabilities. I believe studying this, that AI will overtake all human capabilities. It's crazy to think that because I've always lived in a very real world where I get paid based on how well I know my work. I get paid based on how good the results are that I get from my clients. So I live in a very real and scrappy world. If this doesn't work, I gotta be harsh and real about it. So I'm telling you, as a realist, I'm surprising myself by saying I believe the biggest stretch is true. I do think that we are going to see AI able to overtake all human capabilities. So there's a couple scenarios painted here by the IMF, and one is AGI in 20 years, where AI continually and gradually advances to that point, which devalues labor and basically generates the performance of all human work tasks by the end of that period. So the assumption is that it would take 20 years for the most complex cognitive tasks to be able to be done by AI or AGI. The next scenario is AGI in 5 years. If we look at this chart in this study done by the IMF. So this is where we have an aggressive timeline where AGI, with all the associated consequences for labor, is going to be reached within 5 years. The authors believe that each of these scenarios have a greater than 10% probability, and that's kind of where they land. So, okay, either could go. And then they're calling out policymakers that it's time to take these scenarios seriously and really stress test financial and economic policy frameworks that could perform in these scenarios. If you think about a life post-AGI, I think first of all, we're going to see an entire collapse of everything as we know it, right? You see this as artificial intelligence shoots up and it just gets smarter and smarter and it picks up. In that infinite leap forward, it's going to eat up so many jobs and so many industries. Because if you can just run a Petri dish through AI and it's going to tell you in seconds what it would take a human biologist or scientist months, maybe years to figure out, well, heck, you're going to use AI. And that's the truth. So I want to leave the IMF and pull you over to something pretty crazy. Back in 1972, there was an MIT study that predicted that rapid economic growth would lead to the collapse of society in the mid-21st century. People have gone back and studied this 1972 paper, and they found that we're right on track with what it predicted. So the point that these MIT scientists were making in this paper from 1972 was to study the risks of civilizational collapse, where they're looking at impending limits to growth due to overexploitation of planetary resources. Now, what did we talk about at the beginning? Abundance. Consumption produces abundance. As we grow, as we learn, as we use things, we learn how to tap into the power of more, because the earth is provided with 10,000 times, maybe 1,000,000 times more resources than we could ever use. Space as well, right? Solar energy, the galaxy. So this paper was saying that if we leap forward into this abundance too much, we're going to create a total collapse of society. And this paper predicted a few scenarios. One where we actually hurt food production and standards of living. And then another scenario where we do not lose out on those things, but we actually gain in production of good things like more food. And we lose and we completely avoid things like pollution. So when experts went back and studied this 1972 study, they did it in 2020, by the way, and they presented findings at the World Economic Forum. Their finding was that technological progress and increased investments in public services cannot just avoid the risk of collapse, but lead to a new stable and prosperous civilization operating safely within planetary boundaries. But we only have the next decade to change course. So this expert that presented this 1972 study was saying to policymakers, hey, we need to basically come up with an agnostic approach to growth, something she called A-growth, which focuses on other economic goals and priorities. And it's interesting, right? Because now we see fights between Elon Musk and Microsoft, and we see big corporations fighting over the right, basically, to release AGI. Will this come from an entity with commercialized intent? Will this come from a power-hungry, money-hungry corporation? Or will this end up in the hands of people that actually care about A-growth, an agnostic approach to growth, which focuses on the economy, the world, versus how do I make the most money out of AGI? And that could really lead us into a dystopian future where there are slums and there are things like you see in the movie Elysium, and there are elite sectors that only the people that have tons of money and resources will get to live in. I think that it is too early to call the entire collapse of civilization. And in fact, I look ahead and I see the potential for abundance, a world where we can tap into the power of the sun through breakthroughs given to us by artificial intelligence and AGI, a world where AGI tutors are individually training our kids better than any school teacher could. Imagine 3 teachers to 1 student. Well, that's not humanly possible right now, but it is in a world post-AGI. I also agree with the idea presented by David Shapiro, another YouTuber, future of the meaning economy, where we go from a service economy based on production and monetary tied output to a meaning economy where people get to do work that they love and relationships, meaning, and experiences are prioritized over the traditional economic activity. Now, I identify as a capitalist. I'm not going to lie. I've been an entrepreneur for a decade, but I really believe that we have to see this differently. We cannot actually look at this through the lens of a capitalist or even a socialist. We have to look at it through a truly agnostic lens, because if you think about it, corporations won't even need humans anymore. And if that fundamental need is taken away, then we actually have freedom opened up for more abundant lives where we are not tied to production anymore. So some of the jobs that David Shapiro brings up that he believes are AI proof, completely agree with. Statutory jobs where roles are mandated by law, they could be paid, they could be not paid, because UBI is absolutely a thing, universal basic income. And I believe that when corporations don't need humans, they are going to be taxed. And from that tax will be produced UBI, universal basic income. And the world will, for the first time, have the chance to not be tied to wages because they will be provided with that. Now, I think there's a ton of dangers. We can do a whole nother video just on UBI. Let me know in the comments. I think in the hands of the wrong person, that could get very socialist, that could get very regimented, and it could also lead us straight into a dystopian society with the elite reigning over the rest. And that's not cool. But I also think that it could lead us into something really special where we do get to lead more abundant lives that are not tied to a monetary performance. So statutory jobs, making laws around all of this, meaning jobs where we are working with people on a societal level, providing spiritual, philosophical, social insights. This is clergymen, this is philosophers, this is influencers, kind of going back to the beginning of time when people gathered and they philosophized together. There was a lot of that in our early days of the earth. Experience roles, tour guides, massage therapists, entertainers, people that have resources and have money post-AGI are not going to want to hire a robot to spend time with them. They're still going to want to hire that specialized tour guide, experience-based person. So any kind of on the ground, real life experience-based job, I don't think it'll go away. And care jobs, if you're a nanny, if you're a caregiver, if you're a healthcare worker, I don't think those jobs are going away. Do you want a robot picking up, nursing, and cuddling your baby? Your baby's going to scream unless we're so advanced that that robot looks incredibly lifelike, but I think a baby will tell the difference. I don't think you can fool a baby. So these are the jobs that are not going away. And I highly recommend watching David Shapiro's video for more on this called Life in 20 Years, Predictions on the Year 2044. I'm researching this topic on the daily. I work in AI full-time as the president and partner at Continent Scale, one of the world's best AI SEO writers that generates truly helpful, undetectable, human-like SEO content for your blogs and your websites. It's eating up the job that I used to do. So I had to join the ship, and I'm very proud to be a part of the team at Continent Scale. So go check that out if you want to grow your website with traffic and tap into the power of AI. Learn more at continentscale.ai. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit me with comments. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your questions, and I'll see you right back here on my channel at Julia McCoy. Thanks for watching.